After the presentation, after Ramadan, after that presentation by my granduncle, I went to a Senegalese restaurant. I had just came from a discussion at Columbia University. We were discussing the African diaspora and so forth and so on. I was with a brother from the Sudan. I was with the great author Abdi Latif Edgar from Somalia. There was a brother from Haiti that was with us, and there was another sister from here that was also with us. So when we sat down at the Senegalese restaurant, African Kidney, which was on 116th at the time, we sat down, and the waiter, she looked at Abdi Latif. She knew he was Somali. She looked at the brother from the Sudan, knew he was Sudanese, because Africans, they know each other. Right. And she looks at me and she knows where I'm from. Right. Until I started speaking English. Right. And she became shocked. Right. She said, "Oh my God, I thought you were Fulani from Guinea. You look exactly like the Fulani from Guinea." And that's when I said, "Wait, I heard this before." Mm. So when I after I seen that reaction once again, that's when I said, "Let me do some research." And I went to a book called Black Rice. It's been Black Rice, yes. It's been sitting on my shelf. And after that, I just looked at it, and it was like I don't know how you had the experience, like certain books just call you. Like you'll look at a group of books, and this book will say, "Come," but it's not like the book talking to you, but you get drawn to it. And when I pulled that book out, Black Rice, it was talking about the particular type of people they went after during the slave trade so that they could have a strong rice economy, because you need skilled people. Right. Now, what Fulani brought, the Fulani are the original cowboys. You see, cowboy, even though the cowboy now appears white, but everybody, you go back in history before Hollywood, the cowboys were black. Right. And the reason why it's cowboy is because they didn't call us men. Right. They called us boy. Right. The white ones that were herding, that had cattle were called cattlemen. We were the ones called cowboys. Mm. Now the Fulani are cattle herders. Fulani know cattle. Mm-hmm. They introduced the cattle herding industry to America. Mm-hmm. They introduced that. My ancestors, our ancestors introduced that. Mm-hmm. These cowboys, when along with the rice farmers, you see, and in Guinea you have another crop which the Fulani call hotolo, which is cotton. Mm-hmm. And the Fulani were the ones who introduced cotton weaving to West Africa. Right. Among the Fulani, you find a lot of tailors. Right. You even find Fulani that their name is actually Taylor. Right. You see, their name would be like Amadou Taylor Jallo. Yeah. You see, and because this is a trade that's among the Fulani. Before, our people, they would just cut animal skin and wear it and stuff like that. Right. It was the Fulani, the Fulbe, that when they came, they introduced how to weave cotton and clothes and introduced that industry to America. Right.
I'm like 65, and growing up, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, was from Georgia, and they would say things that sounded comical to a kid growing up in New York, but a lot of the times the things they say was insightful to where you were from and who you actually belonged to.
Yes, yes.
So as a kid growing up in Harlem, my grandmother joking about the Geechee in me, or she would say, "So, well, that's because he's one of them damn rice eaters." Right. None of that ever took as something other than a comical thing an old woman would say.
Yes.
And as I got older and started understanding the history of this nation, of rice in this nation, of African people in this nation, suddenly the things she said, I mean, when she first said that's the Geechee in him, I thought she was making up some funny word.
Right. Exactly.
So when you talk about finding these things out
Yes.
later on, you know, and the whole factoring of the rice growers,
Yes.
and how that comes from Africa,
Yes.
you suddenly see yourself and your history in different ways, and those ways link directly back to Africa.
Yes,
you
yes,
know.
yes. Just like at the weddings, you throw the rice.
Correct,
Th-
correct.
that's
correct.
an African tradition.
Correct, correct.
And what I saw when we went to Guinea, the family we stayed with, there was I call the brother Mr. Rice,
Right.
because he eats rice for breakfast,
Yeah.
rice for lunch,
Yeah.
rice for dinner.
Yeah.
And this is the same culture that's in the South.
Yeah,
You see,
right,
it's exactly the same way in
I
Guinea.
just needed a little bit.
Yeah,
of
right,
meat
yeah.
to make it
A big plate of rice. Yes, and Guinea, to this day, Guineans still eat like that.
Right.
When I sit, when I go and pray and with the Fulani, if there's some food,
Right.
big pans of rice.
Right.
Sauce. You know, you have fish sauce, you have meat sauce, big pans of rice.
And
Yes.
and one, not to cut you
No,
off.
no,
but
go
let
ahead,
you get
continue.
back. But speaking of when I was growing up, we did not have African studies programs and things like that growing up in the late 50s or early 60s and to mid 60s. However, a lot of the African culture and customs were almost second nature to us,
Yes.
and we didn't even realize it. A lot of things we did as I grew up, and I started seeing different African cultures and the way they interact.
Yes,
and,
yes,
the
yes.
things they did. It
Yes.
almost seemed we was that time we were so close to African culture. Oh, you got a call. It was just second nature to us.
Yes.
you know.
And I want to deal with that after the call.
All right,
Yes, because there are certain things that, are we going to take the call or?
Yeah, they're gonna put it through.
They're going to put it
As soon
through.
as it's,
Okay,
through, you'll hear
so,
Hey, how are you?
Oh, good afternoon. How you doing, brother?
Hey, brother, man, how are you, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm well. Salam alaikum to the brother.
wa alaikum salam.
Yes, brother. I want to say your information is phenomenal. It's
Thank
good
you.
to have a brother doing the research that you do and finding out new things. And that, I want to say, this is one of the greatest shows in the cosmos. So I want to say thank you and to your staff and all that. I'll be real quick. Not to, to add on, not to take away anything he said, because I can't take away this powerful brother, anything he said. But I do want to add a few things as far as the DNA thing and all that. Of course, we know that we are the supremes in the entire cosmos. So I'm not like, it doesn't surprise me that, we are connected to people all over the earth and the world, and, they all came from us. My thing is, I think there's a new spiritual DNA. And I think that's the one we need to be concerned of, not this current DNA that, people are getting blood samples and stuff around to find out where they come from, which is fine. You need to know.
Right.
My father is some rich multi-millionaire Nigerian guy that I never grew up with.
Right.
He totally disregarded me. I grew up poor from St. Paul, Minnesota, in America, came to New York, had to make it on my own. So I don't know my African heritage, and I've never been to Africa. And I understand is where we come from, and I applaud that. But I do also know that we're past that now. It's time for the cosmic DNA to come out of us, because these brothers don't understand. They don't understand the knowledge that you're giving. They don't want to hear. They don't apply it. We don't treat each other with that type of knowledge. There's a new cosmic DNA that has taken effect now that is surfacing. You can't see it. I can. With the election of Trump, with the demise of all these other people, and even I want to say what John Lewis said. If he's so angry about not attending the ceremony, why aren't you not angry about these black people killing each other in the streets? Why aren't you not angry? Why aren't you not boycotting these so-called rappers, John Lewis? Why aren't you doing things like that? You went to the Obama thing twice. I supported Obama. You are supposedly a dude from Georgia, and you have constituents that you represent that may support Donald Trump. We may not support him, and we may not, but just like Obama said in 60 Minutes, don't underestimate this guy. We got to get out of this traitor trash talk that we're all together. Black people do not care about each other. They do not. Let's just be real. They do not care about each other. And how do the small amounts of us? Right.
So and that's why programs like Brother Nat's are very important.
Thank you, brother.
Because you know, it's self-knowledge that will eradicate self-hate, and that's the way we get our people out of this self-hate mentality. We have to give them a thorough knowledge of themselves. We have to be connected to our people in Africa. Right. And just going back to what the brothers say, it ties into what you were saying. Right. How you noticed that things you did were African.
I think we were, not to cut you off, but I think in a lot of ways, we were more African when we were Negro. Right. We are now where we have so many scholars, so many learned people teaching us about Africa. We become so disconnected from each other that all the African in us that was just in us has dissipated in a lot of ways.
Yes, and it's not that it hasn't dissipated. It's just that we have taken on the training of our colonial masters. Now, when you said when we were Negroes, meaning when we were in the raw.
When they called us.
No.
Right.
Now, when I was younger.
Right. In the raw.
When I was younger, and this is how I knew, I didn't have to do a DNA. And the brother's right. I did not have to do a DNA.
Right.
My granduncle did it just to confirm what I already knew. I was already 100% sure, because not only did I study the facial features of the people, I studied their behavior.
Correct.
And my behavior and Fulani behavior was, I could say, unparalleled in parallels. It was unparalleled in parallelization, because it was 100% Fulani behavior. My father's behavior was 100%. Fulani are nomads. Right. You see, my father, we lived in every borough except Staten Island. We even lived down in Florida. Right. We would live someplace for a certain amount of time, then he would get up and move. We would live another place for a certain amount of time, then he would get up and move. And we did this throughout our whole life. Right. I can't even tell you how many places we lived. Right. This is Fulani nomadic behavior. Right. They stay one place for a certain season during the dry season, and they go someplace during the wet season, and they just get up and go. This is what you call genetic memory. I don't believe in genetic memory. I know genetic memory is real.
It is real.
When I was young, I remember going to a party where there was candy and potato chips, and I went and bought my snack. Right. And people said, what are you eating? Right. It was a bag of cheese. Right. The Fulani diet is mostly dairy. Right. You see? And cheese is dairy. Right. Most Fulani have what they call that sickle cell trait, but they are blood type O. And blood type O people need dairy. My family's blood type O. And I became very skinny because I was living off of mostly pizza with extra cheese, and it's the same with the Fulani people. The Fulani are very, very slim because they don't eat a lot of food per se. Their diet is mostly dairy. So people were looking at me like, man, you need to eat more. But had I been in my natural environment in Africa, they're like, oh, he's a real Fulani, he's slim. Because Fulani are known to be slim like that. You see, in terms of walking, I would always see myself in my mind being in Africa, walking from country to country. I didn't even know what a Fulani was. But in my mind, I would see myself being in Africa, walking from country to country. This is what Fulani do. That's why they're spread there in every African country, practically half of Africa, over half of Africa, due to their nomadism. Right. So, and let me just make this other point. I didn't get circumcised. This is very personal. Until I was 13. Yeah. Okay, and I was walking around, like, you know, because I had to, you know, the stitches, and it was like natural, you know, for me to ask my mom, you know, I have to get circumcised at this point. I had to get circumcised, and I bugged her when I got to that particular age. Do you know it is Fulani tradition to circumcise their boys at 13 years old, 12, 13 years old? I didn't even know what a Fulani was, but I was doing everything in my life exactly like a Fulani. So this is what you call genetic memory. It is real. Don't deny it. So
I think the caller mentioned some things that we are dealing with right at this moment. Violence in our communities. The way we see ourselves and each other, the disconnect human in our communities. A lot of this, I mean, these things existed, but certainly not to the degree they seem to exist now. I'm wondering, how responsive are people 35 to 45, 25 to 30, 45 and under.
Yes.
To what you're saying now.
Well, that's interesting you asked me because I've been teaching what's called the junior FOI class for the last 20 years.
Right.
And I can tell you, I've done youth ministry inside the prisons among the Bloods and the Crips
That's more
and
to
the gangs.
The point because the FOI, if you're talking about the Nation of Islam, that's
right.
Far more receptive. They're far more receptive. To thinking.
Yes. But going into the youth houses and the youth where the youth are jailed, and they're sworn to these gangs of Bloods and Crips. They are very receptive.
Excellent.
To knowledge of themselves, knowledge of their people, unifying. A lot of these things our people do is because really they don't know. They don't know, particularly our young people. I say this about the generation, this generation now. This is what you call the crack baby generation.
I think it was before that. I think it was the attack on our culture, specifically through heroin. I think crack was phase 2, not phase 1.
Okay, but the violence, the level of violence, we never had where, like in New York City in 1990.
That is correct.
We had like 2,000, which
correct.
During the Desert Storm.
That is correct.
In 6 years, America only lost 2,000 soldiers. We lost 2,000 people in 1 year in New York City, because not only did they introduce the drugs, they introduced guns with it. You see, and
they introduced a total corruption of the arts.
Yeah.
Where you make your money literally by denigrating yourself and everything around you.
Exactly.
Over and over and over again.
Yes.
It's not a part of life. It is life.
Right.
And I think the totality.
Totality.
Of it all,
Yes.
I think it started with the 60s with the heroin, and the heroin specifically, and each of these things, and this is my opinion.
Yes.
Each of these things were attacks on our community.
Yes.
Because prior to, and I think the heroin thing, it's actually been documented. Was an attack on the black community, specifically on young people, on children, and specifically for the reason of quelling the political awareness that young people were getting from places like the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, all the things that were going on. I'm doing a book on Harlem, and I remember growing up in Harlem and coming out of the Harlem Renaissance and into what we call the Civil Rights era. And I remember Harlem, and it was prior to integration is not quite the right word. But dependency upon a white power structure was null and void in Harlem when I was growing up. We literally I never thought about leaving Harlem at all.
Right.
Because everything was there. We had bakery shops, notary publics,
Yes.
Butcher shops, grocery stores. Everything was our own music, our own theaters, our own places we went to. We didn't need Carnegie Hall. We had the Apollo.
That's right. That's
we had
right.
our own pool halls.
That's right. That's right.
So the thought of even venturing past our community,
Right. It wasn't there. That's right.
It
That's
didn't
right.
even compute.
That's right.
And the Renaissance was a direct result of the migration of blacks from the South.
Yes.
So we had our traditions, our culture,
that is correct.
in this place, and we didn't need the outside world.
That's right. That's right.
That began to get pushed aside when people like J. Edgar Hoover aggressively sought to destroy black families, destroy cultural awareness, destroy that political awareness that he was so scared of. And I think generation by generation, it got exponentially worse. And then with as you said, not just a crack, but they dumped machine guns. And this was the United States government.
That's right. That's right.
Machine guns and this super drug on our communities.
That's right.
And these communities had not recouped from the first attack. So a lot of it was and the thing we showed from the Black Star, it showed the correlation of black families and how they got disassembled. Subsequent to say 1965. So when you put this in the mix, machine guns.
That's right.
Total corruption of the arts. You come to this place we are now.
That's right. That's exactly
true. And the question is, how do we get out of this place and back to who we have always been?
That's right.
Because we've always been forward moving.
That's
no matter
right.
what.
That's right. That's right. And we are. So it's like it just takes that all of us doing our part. You know, all of us doing something in our community, particularly with the young people.
Right.
We have to do something with the young people. As the saying goes, easier to teach a young person than it is to teach an older person. Yes, it's really that simple. And it's just instilling these type of values in them while they're still young. So if we really want to make a change in our people, we have to go after the young. We have to teach them this knowledge, the knowledge of themselves, their history, discipline, and give them the vision of being independent. You know, because there may not be a job for them when they get older. There may not be a job. You know, so we have to teach them how to do something for self. Yes. So
we never even thought about there being a job. We invented jobs.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But we knew it wasn't a job.
Yes. So we can't put that idea in our young people's heads that you go to school, you get your education.
Let me ask you this. You said, and we're running out of time. You said that when you introduced this into prisons, and you talked to young people, and you were dealing with Bloods and Crips, that they were receptive to what you were teaching.
Yes.
Which begs the question.
Yes.
Is it them, meaning young people?
Yes.
Or is it us, meaning old folks like me, who have either abandoned our principles or our teaching methods or whatever. Because when I was growing up, to get into arts, to get into anything, you had to learn from older people and emulate older people. Now you've reached a place where you got old folks trying to show that they rappers and I'm 46 years old. Right.
You have people my age.
Right.
Joining gangs.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm looking at them like, why would you get to this point in your life to join a gang that was started by children?
Right.
So it's the other way around.
Right. It's the other way around.
Instead of the young people imitating the adults, the adults are imitating the young people.
Correct.
Yes, and dressing like the young people.
Correct.
So
And
yes.
we never call a 40-year-old man the youth.
Right,
I mean,
right,
he's
right,
like
right, right, right.
you
Exactly,
know, get a
exactly,
grip.
exactly. But yeah, but that's what has happened, because those that are 40, a lot of them, because of the devastation we talked about, the dope era, the crack era,
Right.
you know, they grew up not knowing what a parent was.
Right.
And I watched the breakdown of family, but you know, in my neighborhood, growing up in the Bronx, when I grew up there in the 70s, there was still a sense of community.
Correct.
You know, you were able to go to your
Correct.
friend's house, get something to eat.
Correct.
There were 2 parents in the house,
Correct.
your mom and dad.
Parents.
Yes,
the whole community was your parent.
Right.
Everybody was your parent.
Exactly.
People
So-
didn't know you were your parent.
Exactly. But as that time went on, you saw a breakdown. You know, you
Right.
start seeing less fathers in the house.
Right.
And what devastated me the most was during the crack era. You know, I used to go to my friend's house and eat, and his mom was like my aunt. And when crack hit the streets, I seen this woman that I looked up to as an aunt, you know, prostituting herself,
Right.
and it
Right.
blew my mind.
Right.
It blew my mind. I couldn't even fathom this. You understand? So it's like this was the breakdown of the family, because when that drug got into our people, they would do anything to get that drug. And so you had children growing up without parents.
We literally got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Tie this up. How do people get in touch with you? We never got to talk about.
There's a program. Speaking of there's a program about how to eat to live. It's oh man, I don't have the information. This is taking place
I left my phone.
at Mosque number 7. I guess you could call 212-865-1200. 212-865.
Look at the camera. Right there.
Yes, 212-865-1200. 212-865-1200. That's the number to Muhammad's Mosque number 7.
And this is going to be on the 28th.
The 28th, yes, exactly, the 28th. And it's a program on how we can reverse the sickness and disease that's going on in our communities through proper diet, proper eating. We have to have the knowledge and the know-how in order to do that. You can't just do it, you know, overnight. You have to know what foods to stay away from and what foods to eat.
Excellent.
Yes.
And I'll talk to you a little more about that next week, prior to the 28th.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much.
I want to thank you for having me.
Brother Shabazz,
Yes.
Elijah Shabazz, for
Yes.
coming on, giving us food for thought, as well as teaching us about what food to live off of. We'll see you next week. Peace. We out. Thank you.